Most financial advisors think their biggest content problem is editing. They think they need better AI, better software, better virtual assistants. But what if the real problem started long before anyone touched a camera? Every week, advisors tell us they want authentic documentary content. Content that builds trust, creates connection, and turns viewers into clients. Yet when we ask for their story, we get a headshot, a bio, and maybe a LinkedIn profile.
Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your virtual assistant can't tell your story if you haven't told it first. Your editor can't create emotion if they don't know what happened. And AI can't recreate moments you never shared. The most powerful documentaries aren't built in the editing room. They're built during the interview. The turning points, the setbacks, the lessons, the moments that shaped who you became, that's where the real story lives.
In this week's episode of the Digital Advisor Sandbox, we're breaking down why the interview process may be the most important step in creating a documentary that people actually watch. We'll show you how to uncover your story, what materials your team actually needs, and why most advisors accidentally sabotage their content before production even begins.
So if you've ever wondered why your videos don't feel authentic, or why your team struggles to capture your vision, sit back, relax, and let's get into this week's episode of the Digital Advisor Sandbox.
Welcome to the Digital Advisor Sandbox, your marketing and lead generation blueprint.
Welcome, my name's Rob Souza, the producer at WealthVids, and
Brian Wayne with the Sandbox. Welcome, welcome.
thank you for joining us. And today we are going to be tackling the idea of letting go of that insecurity that you feel like you need a polished professional video, bio video, why story, background story about the company, and you will go out and spend $5,000-$10,000 and go to a studio and do it. All of that sounds great. I've learned feeds my ego just to admit it, but at the end of the day, it doesn't connect. Why?
Well, it doesn't produce results.
Well,
And the whole point of creating content is to attract an audience. And the way you attract an audience and connect with them is through what we're going to talk about today, through storytelling and sharing your story, not just the facts and figures about the product that you're pushing.
and you said something last night in the Sandbox After Dark, which I thought was insightful for me. It was a big takeaway from our conversation, and that is that it's kind of a two-part question. That one, you have to study your audience and know who your audience is and what are their pain point, their life experiences. We always say, oh, know my target audience, and it's 45 to 65 years old who has $500,000. That's not your target market story.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times when people create content, they come at it from, they immediately assume, well, I got to pitch my services, or I got to talk about how great I am. And I brought up the analogy of the Hallmark Channel versus like action movies. You know, those are two different audiences. I don't
Sure.
connect with the content on Hallmark. My wife does. She doesn't like the movies I like because they're not for her target audience. So when you understand who you're talking to, then you can create a story that connects with that particular audience. We beat it to death, but you really have to understand your target audience. Who is your client, your ideal client?
Yeah, and it's super important. And then digging into, so what we're going to talk about today, pulling out someone's true story, not the story they want to tell, but the real story.
The story that will connect.
And the why behind that story.
Mhm.
I think it's important when we talk about knowing your target audience, you need to do the same thing with your target audience or your clients. Is you have to understand not just the demographics, but what are their motivations? What are their fears? What are their ambitions?
Mhm.
And why? And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to keep going back to the question of why. Because otherwise, you're just talking at people. You're telling an objective story. But when you share why, when you uncover why with your clients, when you uncover why in your story,
It connects with their why.
correct. And when you are able to bridge that gap, and then people, well, I need to do this professional production. When in reality, what's more important? Because I know I focus on like digging the story out of people, but what you've brought to the table is replicating that story in real time. But ultimately, what's more important? The story, the real story of why, or the professional recreation?
Oh, the real story, of
Yeah.
course.
That's the foundational piece. That's what we're talking about today. It doesn't matter how professional of a video that you create. If
I mean,
you're
it
not,
could be shot on an iPhone. This could be a live workshop dinner presentation.
yes,
It it crosses all of those situations. You need to tell an authentic story, not just an authentic story, but the why that you're talking about,
Mhm.
and understand the why and the motivation of your audience also.
Yeah. And I think most of what we do in our industry is solve problems, prevent emergencies, right? Everybody's had some sort of emergency that's caused a financial impact. The question is, what was that story? And is it relatable to the advisor who relates to that story because they have a similar story and they're super motivated to work with someone who has your story, and they have a why behind it because it's personal, because they've shared their own vulnerable struggle story that made them super sensitive to helping people in the same situation.
Yes.
So all that being said, what would you say is as we kind of move into today's broadcast, what would you say is the one most important thing that you as a producer, director, what do you try and bring out in a story that you have to have before you're ready to move forward with developing the recreation?
Well, in this particular case, when we're talking about sales presentations, I'm always trying to write the story, and I have a benefit too of being the neutral third party. So I'm taking someone else's story and I'm writing it for their audience. So I'm in the middle and I'm trying to understand who is the audience. So I'm reading and writing the story as if I am that audience.
You're the observer.
And if it doesn't make sense to me, then it's not going to make sense to anyone else. If I'm not feeling the emotion, or if the advisor is trying to get a point across, and if I don't think that that's clear and that it's not making sense to what the audience is feeling, then I have to work it. I have to massage it a little bit. And you like what we're going to talk about later is that origin story. I need all those facts and that backstory so it can flow. It can have that nice storyline feel.
Yeah, I agree. And the reason I ask that question is because so many people will pay a lot of money for a production company, editor, even a VA who may be able to create a professional video for you, even AI high quality video for you. But without what you just explained, it falls flat. It doesn't give you the results that advisors are looking for. And so they're hesitant to invest that into their business. And I think that's a phenomenal takeaway, because the reality is, if and we've been very careful about this, where I don't give you a lot of information about the client, I just give you the interview. And then you're able to create a replication of the interview. And if it's on point, we know we got the interview right.
Yeah.
If we watch it, me and the client, the advisor, the life agent, we watch the video and the client is just saying, no, that's not accurate at all, then the interview was not good enough.
Yeah.
We didn't pull out enough detail and enough why behind it to make sure that you could understand it well enough to present it, which means the viewer won't be able to understand it.
And we talk a lot about using these AI tools, and I've perfected my system, an AI tool, and exactly what you say, where I read the story, I connect with it, we review it. It's like, oh, well, you didn't focus enough on this. So I can go back and I say, okay, I know the information is there because it was in the interview, and I can just go ahead and prompt the script and say, these two paragraphs, here's what I want to fix. I need it to be more like this and less like that. and then it will make the changes. We review it, and we move to the next section.
It's a great check and balance. And I think it's been the essence of our relationship. You as a writer director, and then me knowing the industry really, really well, and being able to get to that why story. Every time sending it to you as a test if I did my job right, and helps me improve my ability to bring that story out. But what we want to do, we're going to kind of move into today's broadcast, but I wanted to just really quickly go over what you're going to get out of today's broadcast if you stick around to the very end. One, they're going to give you a list of all the interview questions we think that you need to ask yourself, or if you hire a production team, they need to ask you. And if they're not asking these questions, then you're not going to get authentic, relatable story that has the why behind it. And then also we have a list of what I'd call collateral that needs to be provided. So that's like shooting backgrounds. Make sure every opportunity you get, if you're recreating the past, recreate it with the background of the same city, the same building, the same office. As much authentic detail as you possibly get. Now, you made me, in my dad's documentary, go through like 25 photo albums where I had to start pulling pictures that I felt like related to the script.
Yeah.
And then I had to go through old video.
And we were able to use those photos to recreate that environment of of that 70s kind of photography.
Yeah.
And it was like, turned out really cool.
Which is funny. And I told you this last night in the After Dark, that my dad saw one of those video clips that you recreated from a image I gave you. It was so real. He was like, wow, I didn't know.
I don't remember.
I don't remember taking that picture, but can you please send it to me? Because it looks, for him, it took him right back to that time sitting at that desk in that moment. He thought it was 100% real. And that's the great thing about AI. You can't replicate the past if you don't have video. Maybe use an image. But the fact that you recreated the first office building he ever worked in, we actually did the research, found the building.
Now, and something about AI too, because I keep feeling like there's pushback on this, because we love it. Obviously, we use it all the time. But when we say we're recreating those moments with AI, you could just as easily take your dad and a whole film crew, go to that office, rent it out for the weekend, do the interview there, and it would cost you tens of thousands of dollars. Or you can use an AI tool that does the same thing. So it's not about the AI tool. It's still about the story.
Okay, but
in those moments.
I'm gonna take a step further. First of all, my dad has moved out of California in Texas, so that would have been harder. The second thing is, even if we did all that, spent all that money, it would still be my dad behind the camera with white hair in his late 70s versus the real story was when he was 28 years old.
Oh yeah.
And so
you can make those images come to life using AI. And again, you can do the same thing with an actor and go to an old 70s style looking office.
Then you got to find an actor.
But I'm just pushing back on the fact that people are dismissing AI as a viable tool to do some of the things that we're talking about. And AI is not magic. We talked on the After Dark about it's a reflection of the user. So your version of a script is going to be different from my version of a script, even though we're using the same AI tool, because you're the one driving the bus.
Yeah, absolutely. And so getting that why story, but that's also why we were saying right before the two things you're going to get, which is questions you need to ask yourself or your editor or production team needs to ask you. And two, the collateral that you should provide when you do create that script. And if you do those two things, you've got all the essential elements. And so those are going to be two free downloads that we will post at the end of today's video. So let's go ahead and transition into the main part of, we have three main points we're going to try and make today, but let's watch this video and we'll go to point one.
I find people drop the ball in two areas when they're first starting out as documentary filmmakers, and that's one, their films don't have tension or conflict. They're just about a person or a place. They're not about a story or a journey. But I want to give you guys a couple quick tips that will really help your documentary interviews. So number one tip is do a pre-interview. You want to get to know your person before you actually ever shoot your on-camera interview. So do a pre-interview, and if you can't meet up with the person ahead of time or get on a phone call, watch other interviews of the person if there is any, or do as much research about their life or about the things that they're familiar with. My number 2 point is ask more why questions. And you want to ask why questions because it gets into people's emotions. You want to ask people to relive their experience. What you can't show them B-roll is what they were feeling. But if you can just zip it for the most part, they're gonna keep talking, and that's when you get to the good stuff. Because the first response that they'll give you will probably just telling you what happened that day. But the longer you wait, they're gonna have to go deeper in their mind, deeper in their heart, deeper in their emotions, and they're gonna give you a much deeper answer most of the time that will resonate with your audience and again, create a much more interesting character in your film. Every film is about showing someone's journey, and along that journey, people learn things. So it's important for you to be asking your subject what they have learned. What do you think you learned through this experience?
Then I'll go into this. All right. And such a great point. I felt like maybe even a little bit of arrogance, felt like I was really good at interviewing people, bringing out the real story in them, until we got together and you took my game to a whole nother level because you were the unbiased bystander who wasn't jaded by knowing industry terms. You weren't jaded by industry jargon. And so you were able to take an interview and say, I don't have enough here to connect the dots. And so you'd follow up with me and say, no, I need this information, and this information. And that was helpful. And the point that this is making is the extraction of information from the owner, the founder, is so absolutely cornerstone, critical to all of the content you're going to create, not just for your website or for videos, but how about live presentations? How about an elevator pitch? Hey, what do you do?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a life insurance agent. Like being able to tell your story is so much more significant than giving a title.
Yeah. Well, how much more interesting too, if you were at a party or someone and you bump into someone and say, well, what do you do? And they started with, well, that's a very interesting question because you see about 5 years ago, and then they tell you a story about what they do today. How much more engaging would that be? Like, well, I sell life insurance. What do you do?
Right.
That's a pretty short conversation.
As soon as somebody says they're a life insurance agent,
people walk away.
I feel like I have the word target on my forehead. Like, oh, now I know why they're talking to me.
Yeah.
They want to sell me life insurance or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. But you know where the feeling first started was multi-level marketing. As soon as I heard somebody was in like Amway or whatever the, different. And
Nutrisystem or Nutrilife or.
And I'm not, those are legitimate earning opportunities. It just, for me, I had a hard time with it because I felt like every time I talk to someone, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking,
well, it's not the business's fault. It's their presentation. They really sucked at talking about their service.
Teaching people how to get people to like, know, and trust them before you bring up anything about. That's why when somebody says, what do you do?
Well, that's the difference between sales and marketing.
Yes. So as a life insurance agent, if somebody asked me what I did, I would say, I specialize in helping people. I have a service that specializes in helping people mitigate tragic risks that could financially devastate families. Yeah, it's a more complicated answer, but it creates intrigue. And then I go right into the story I told you last night in the After Dark. Let me give you an example.
Oh yeah, and tell your dad's story.
And my dad got into the industry because the industry gave him all these benefits. But at the end of the day, his first client that he had to deliver a death benefit to was his pool guy. And it was a year and 1 month after the policy was put in place, $1 million death benefit. And his wife and 2 young children, an infant and 2-year-old, come home into the driveway. They click on the garage opener, and their dad's hanging from his own belt from the rafters inside of the garage. And my dad had to, in those days, actually hand deliver that check. And that's when he realized the significance of like this truly does rescue people from tragedy. Because what's worse than the tragedy of losing someone, it's losing someone and then losing your financial stability. That's worse, because you want people to just focus on the bereavement of the human loss. You don't want them to be distracted with the logistics.
I got to pay rent,
finance, and all of that. And so he understands the significance. And fast forward 30 years, her two sons are now, one's a lawyer, one's a surgeon. She started her own business, and now they're independently wealthy, living in one of the most expensive communities in Southern California. So it shows you the significance. But that sort of introduction or elevator pitch is so much better than, oh, I'm a life insurance agent.
Yeah.
I sell life insurance policies.
Right.
So that's the point of
story matters.
Story matters. So let's go ahead. We're going to take a quick video break as we enter into our next segment.
If you're a financial advisor or a sales agent and you're struggling with getting clients to pay attention, trust you, and take action, it's probably because you're selling with facts instead of stories. Numbers don't sell, emotions do. And the fastest way to create emotion? A great story. Most financial advisors sound the same. Lots of numbers, big words, and boring charts. But the ones who win, they tell great stories. Stories make people feel something. And when they remember your story, they remember you. If people don't remember you, they won't hire you.
To be a great storyteller, you must first become great collectors of stories.
But when you are building brand, when people care about you or your business, that is the ultimate form of selling. There is no affiliate, there's no portal, no Google ads that are more powerful than building a brand.
Did you know that people are 22 times more likely to remember a story than a fact? That means if you're just throwing out numbers and data at your clients, they're turning out. But when you tell a great story, they listen, trust you, and most importantly, they're likely to take action.
So when we see a kid with a lemonade stand, it's different than when we see a vending machine selling lemonade, even if it's exactly the same product, because the story around it is what people are paying for.
Yeah, Seth Godin, love him.
Story. There's a lot of great clips.
What do they say? Facts sell. No, facts tell and stories sell.
That's it. And that's going to be the theme of today. And it's not just some made up story. And I even would contest it's not even a client story. It really is a first person emotional story. Like, it's one thing to tell a story about somebody else's tragedy, but even the way I told my dad's story with the garage. Now, that's the tragedy of a client, but the story context was, how did it make my dad feel, and why did it inspire him to double down on his business, and why it became so personal to him. And that's what makes the story about him. It's his emotional reaction. It's the why. Why did you feel that way? Why did that solidify your purpose and give you a new purpose in your career? And it's that why story. And boy, when I get down to an interview where a financial advisor says, I don't know why, I know I'm getting close.
Yeah.
Because then I just need to ask enough questions around it to drag that story out.
Well, that just shows you too that most people don't even think about it.
They don't.
They don't even factor into why they're doing what they do, and why are you even getting out of bed in the morning to do this?
And my wife happens to be a ghostwriter, and so I'm became familiar with this process when she started the ghostwriting career, and the idea is, because she specializes in great published books, and reading and writing specialist is her degree. She understands the theme of a good story, and so if you don't pull out a good enough story in a book, nobody's going to care, because we get this all the time. It's just a sales piece that is like print per order, and people like glance through, oh, this is just one big long sales pitch, and then they set the book down and they never open it again. I think that's the problem in our industry.
Yeah.
And when you look at like even books, people write a book, they may even be on the bestseller list for a certain category of Amazon, but then later you go to their office and they've got like 200 books that they bought on the first day to make sure they got the bestseller status
that they've never read. Oh yeah, of their own book.
Their own book, because
their own book.
Hillary Clinton just got caught. New York Times bestseller, but they found that they had one purchase of like 500,000 books.
Oh my God.
I don't remember the specific number, so please don't police me, but I know it was a significant enough number to make sure on one day in the first week she would hit the New York, and then they'll resell those books. But the point is, just because it's a bestseller doesn't mean really
that anyone read it.
Right. and that's
bestseller doesn't mean most read
or connected with.
Yeah.
And people want to, what makes a good book that people are going to actually read is when you start the book, you can't put the book down.
Yeah.
What element creates that behavior?
Well, it's the story, and it's a story you care about. I mean, we've talked about, well, we just showed a clip of Seth Godin. I've read a couple of his books, and they're lessons, they're teaching books about marketing, but they're also filled with a bunch of stories that are backstories and how he got from here to there.
But talk just a little bit about story arc, on how opening a story, because obviously we know authentic stories help people connect, and authentic stories sell. But what's the story arc formula you use in your prompting that you've developed over the years that you know can help create the page turning behavior or the scrolling behavior?
Well, it's the story. Well, we refer to it as an origin story or a backstory, and it's that. It's how you got from where you were then to where you are now, and it's framed around the hero's journey. Everyone's heard about the hero's journey. It's that 5-step loop where you start out and everything's fine, and then you go on this journey and things turn to shit, and then something happens, and then you need to go out and search for help. You find a mentor. That mentor guides you into this new solution to fix the problem you had, and now you have this thing, this product or service that you've developed, and now you need to take it back to your village and then teach everyone else.
And I think even kind of going,
and that's every story. That's Star Wars. That's every story, everything's fine, then there's a problem, and then there's a journey. The girl's been kidnapped and you need to go find rescue her, and then you come back home.
Don't trust us. Just Google man in a hole.
Yeah.
Or Google Don Miller storytelling.
Yeah.
The formula is the same, and it can be
Don
applied.
Miller talks about that in his book. That's where I got a lot of that information that I just put out there. It's that hero's journey.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to that is make sure in the beginning of the book you don't present the guide and the solution until it's necessary. You want to let the reader wonder and want to turn the page or continue watching, because you're leaving the uncertainty of, did they solve the problem? How did they solve the problem? Did they switch careers?
Or it's like, I thought I had the problem solved, but it just made it worse.
Yeah.
You need all those, and that's what connects the viewer or the reader or whatever. And if you can frame that, and what we do in our documentaries, our sales presentations, is we take that story and wrap it around a sales presentation, So your origin story really is like what you said. It's like with that elevator pitch. Why did you get into this business? Well, it's because I had this client and he died and I had to give them this money.
Right.
And that's part of what makes you do what you do. And when you have this product or service that fits this solution, how did you develop that? And then how do you present that to your clients?
And I think it goes back to motive. I think everybody assumes any sort of person on commission, and I don't care, all the financial advisors in the world can say, oh, we only make money when you make money, and I'm a fiduciary. But yeah, your politicians have told you the exact same thing. I'm here for your benefit. I'm here to represent you. But how often does it work out that way?
Rarely.
And so it comes down to motive. You only believe people when you understand their motive. Like, for instance, and I'm just going to tell a random story. Let's just say we have a military contractor, okay? And you got to choose, your family member has been kidnapped in a foreign country, and you're trying to negotiate their release and bring them home. Are you going to, and you have all kinds of military contractors you can use. How do you decide which military contractor that you trust the most? Wouldn't it be the contractor who tells multiple stories of how they solved the exact same problem you're going through right now, and they're giving you their word that they are, the reason I got into this business is because my own battle buddy was a prisoner of war, and we literally had to work alongside the SEAL team to get him back. And then when I retired, I felt like that was my life purpose, because I know what it was like to worry about my battle buddy never coming home and having to answer to his wife and his kids.
Hey, this is a great movie. We should just write this. I'd watch that.
I would too. But it's a little bit of that suspense. It's keeping that conflict, that tension in the story. I think financial advisors need to think that they present it as, look, I did this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and that's why you should hire me. But in reality, I think people want to know that you also struggle.
Yeah.
And that why is this personal to you? And you have to kind of be vulnerable and share some of your failures, because nobody learns how to do everything right because they got it right every single time.
And sharing the failure is a key part of the origin story that we write. You didn't just wake up one morning and have this brilliant epiphany about this great product or service. You got there through trial and error. And if you don't share that, that is the most pivotal part of the journey, is that trial and error that got you to where you are today.
So just wrapping up this segment, and it is really about extracting the story, whether it's extracting it yourself by answering all the possible questions you can. And again, at the end of this episode, we're going to give you a download of all the questions we think you should answer. And I don't think they should be one-liners. I think you need to take a day off of work, go sit somewhere like a park or go on a hike, and just sit for several hours and just dictate into a phone or type out or handwrite everything you can think of about that particular question. Not a one-liner answer. No, explain it. Give us the backstory. Give us the why. And all of those questions are going to be included in the download we have that will be at the end of this episode. But extracting an authentic, true story really is the cornerstone of kind of what we're talking about today. And then from there, we'll talk about, in the next point, we'll move on to help you bringing it to life. Let's see, make sure. Yes. Okay. Let's go ahead. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll get into actual implementation.
It's a guide for you to know where to start so that you don't get stuck recording interviews that aren't really helping your film, because there's nothing worse than when you come back to the interview and you look at it and say, well, this ain't helping. But if you just change what you're asking for with the word what, you can get much more interesting questions like, what was going through your head? What were you feeling in that precise moment? What are your goals? What do you think will happen if you don't reach your goal? So you can actually just go through your list of questions and write E or I, emotion or information. And if you have a lot of I's beside your questions, it might be time to ask some more emotive questions. I think the biggest mistake for most people in interviews is that they're not actually listening to what people are saying. That's just not how conversations go in real life, and you want people to forget that they're being interviewed. My next point is leave 10 minutes before your interview just to hang out with the person. Even if you've done a pre-interview, it's nice to let someone's nerves calm down. And don't talk about yourself. Ask lots of questions, even in this opening moment. I love just giving some space and time for my subjects to land, which leads me to my next point, is research who your person is to death, whether that's in pre-interviews or talking to their family or just getting into any information online about them so that the questions you ask will help them feel known. So study, study, study your person. Take that extra hour or few hours the days ahead of time to get to know who they are. One of the key parts to me coming up with the questions for my films is also immersing myself in what I believe will be the cinematic universe of that actual film. Bonus tip, never interrupt. Let someone finish their thought. Sometimes people like me, we need to just hear ourselves talk for us to actually sort out our thoughts. And perhaps you don't feel what they're saying is that important, but that is important for the person to actually sort out what they're thinking and feeling. And when you interrupt, you're telling them that's not important.
Yeah, and this is kind of our last segment talking about storytelling, because I think we've beat a dead horse. Is that what they say? And this is more directed at DIYers. If you are trying to write your own story. Now, I know the video clip was about somebody interviewing you. That is a good tactic, even if you're writing your own story, because if you get a good interviewer who genuinely wants to understand what you went through and the whys behind the story you're telling, it can bring out a lot more than if you sit and do it yourself.
Yes, and documentarians are often called storytellers, and they're the ones telling the story, not necessarily the person that's being interviewed. It's the interviewer that's telling the story, that knows how to pull that information out of the person that they're interviewing.
What's really great,
and then crafting that into a story.
Yeah, what's really great about AI is documentaries, is that even if you have your own story or you're telling your own story, it's always more impactful to have a third party. If you don't have a third party, hey, AI can be that third party.
Invent one.
You can invent an interviewer that is extremely polished, and we just recreate. So if I do the interview, which by the way, I do complimentary interviews for anyone who is interested in using any one of our services, one of those complimentary services, I will do an intake interview exactly as we've discussed today. And I'm not selling our service. I'm just saying that is included in our process. It's all I've done now for 10 years. And that helps. You can hire me independently to do that, or more importantly, just find somebody who is a good friend or somebody you know who asks hard questions, and they're not afraid to ask hard questions, and that you'd be most comfortable opening up and talking to. Because remember, you can edit if you share too much in the interview and you're not comfortable with it, you can always pull back and edit it out. Maybe the stuff you want to hold back a little bit, maybe take names out, identities out, that sort of thing. But the initial interview, the private initial interview, does need to be as deep as possible.
Yeah.
So we just gave you all the ways to extract your own story. And what we're going to do now is transition into how do you take that story and bring it to life on digital, because this is digital. This is we used to call it Digital Advisor Weekly. Now it's a sandbox for digital advisors, but we specialize in digital services. So how do you take your story and make it digital? And now, not that it's not also applicable to
Yeah, I
other
mean,
situations.
once you have the story, you can convert that into a presentation. You can convert that into a 5-minute social media clip, a YouTube video, a workshop, whatever you want. But it's how do you take that story and then put it into some sort of presentation?
And I can tell you, the work that you've done with our advisors for them, not only to get to their story, but to articulate it and digitize it, helps them rehearse that story. You get to know it very intimately. What kind of impact have you observed as an outsider has made on those advisors' businesses once they clearly have defined their story, developed it, digitized it, they watch it over and over again?
What's really been interesting is like, your dad and others who you assume they know their story because they're the ones that told it to you. But when they see it back, they process it different because they're seeing their own story being presented this way, and it gives them even more new ideas or more new epiphanies.
I agree. Yeah, and
that just shows the power of a good story is even it impresses even the person whose story it is.
And there's two other thoughts. One, I feel like it helps business owners own their own story.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's no longer I'm a life insurance agent. Like, no, they're leading with their why.
You create a corner of the market that just never existed before, and you just dominate it completely.
People get captivated with your story and they forget or don't realize you're a salesman because they're so drawn into your story. They feel like it's just a friend sharing a story over a drink at a bar.
Yeah. And we've talked about this too. And I just now thought of this is the red ocean, blue ocean. Like if you want it's, the red ocean is just life insurance. But if you want to be in a blue ocean, you create like what we did for your dad. And it's this little section of the market that no one has ever addressed. And he's the absolute number one in that category.
And I can think of a few others.
So to be able to tell a story, you are creating your own blue ocean.
Absolutely. And helping advisors find their own blue ocean. I did 2 interviews in the last week, which we're going to be doing documentaries for, that honestly, in these 2 individuals, I have never heard of the hundreds and hundreds of advisors I've worked with in developing workshops and webinars. Never heard anybody with this particular niche and why they got into that niche and the backstory behind it. I can't wait to produce these because I really do think it is a blue ocean. I don't think there's anybody out there I'm aware of that competes in this particular area with their story.
Yeah.
So,
and because that story also talks to that exact target audience. And that's what we talk about all the time is know your target audience. And if you have a product for that audience, you need to be able to tell that story that will hit that right audience.
That's it. So we're going to transition into production so we can make sure that we give you everything you need to know about moving from uncovering your story to now bringing it to life. So we'll take a quick break, come right back, and we'll dive into the application production side. Cue next video, unless there isn't a next video and I'm just going to transition, which I can do too, and that's the joy of being live. But nope. Okay, so we are going to then start talking about the actual production side. So as we take the interview and the authentic story and begin to start the production side of things, can you give us what you look for in the story and how you bring it to life?
Yeah, I have a few different tools. Well, first you need to create the script, and what we just talked about this whole episode is extracting that story, getting that origin story, and then turning it into a presentation. And I've created a couple tools where I take the interview and using Claude, and I've created Claude skills. Skills are something you can look up on YouTube and figure out what they are, but it's basically like a 2-page prompt with directions. It's kind of like it's not computer code, it's just regular English, but it's a directive for the AI to do what it needs to do. So it pulls all the information out, writes it into a documentary format, and then I overlay that with another marketing skill that turns it into a sales presentation. So we get a documentary sales presentation. And then once it's formatted in that form, then I'll go through and I'll read it and edit it and prompt it and spend, another couple hours fine tuning it. And then once the script is done, then you can move into the video production, which is a whole nother topic, but we can talk a little bit about that.
I honestly, I think the most important part, you just brought it up, and I would not have covered it if you had not brought it up today. And that is, we're talking about storytelling and some kind of indirect implications of improving your business when you uncover that story. You're talking about bringing it to life. But the reality is, most people, most advisors and life agents want to go default to best practices sales presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I kind of want to just touch on really quickly. If you're having hesitation about telling your story and how to connect it to a sales presentation so it effectively creates leads and appointments, which is ultimately, isn't that, if anybody's watching, if you're a sales agent, a life insurance agent, if you're like me, that's all I care about at this time is, how do I tell a story?
And that's what
in a
the
way?
sandbox is. That's what all we talk about is how to get leads. And the way you get leads is tell a good story. But you also have to marry it with a right sales presentation.
So that's what I want you to talk on, because that's what we're going to finish on today. We're going to make sure we give out the resources we discussed, and then we'll wrap up for today. But talk about, how long did it take you to merge? Because your specialty has always been either in the storytelling, Hollywood script writing, or it's been in ClickFunnels sales presentations. I forced you to kind of merge the two. I didn't know how, but how long did it take you, and why is that so important?
Well, it's really important, and it kind of goes back to my days when I was doing infomercials. So I really got a bulk of my experience in film production, shooting commercials and infomercials, and working in that, you quickly realize there's a formula, and every single infomercial is exactly the same. It has the same timing, all the same beats. And you have to have the testimonials, you have to have the demonstration, you have to have the little call to action, spaced every 3 minutes throughout the whole hour-long video. And there's a formula for that. And then what I gathered from that and put together with Russell Brunson, who started ClickFunnels, who wrote a book called Expert Secrets, and he has it called the
Russell Brunson, right there.
Oh yeah, right. He's right there on the video. Yeah. Okay. It is a webinar. It's a webinar presentation, and he perfected the webinar. And I'm taking what I've done with infomercials, with what Russell Brunson has built with webinar presentations, which hit all those same beats as an infomercial, as an on-stage presentation. If you've ever been to an event where they sell stuff in the back of the room and everyone rushes to the table and pulls out their credit card, that's what they're doing. They're doing a presentation that hits all those emotional beats and compels people to go purchase. And we're taking it and we're putting it in a documentary form, which is an engaging, entertaining, informative, edutainment style documentary. But there's also a sales presentation attached to it, which will get people to book an appointment, fill out a form, do whatever action it is that you want to take. And you need all these things. And if you want people to take action, it has to hit all those markers. And it's the problem solution, it's the hook story offer, it's the origin story. How did you get here? What did you do? And then knowing your audience well enough that you can overcome all of their objections before you even get to an offer.
Yep.
You have to bridge all of those things and get inside the head of your client, know what their objections are, answer all those before you ever ask them to book a call. Because by the time you ask them to book a call, they're already thinking, where's the button? I need this guy.
So
what is he selling? Whatever it is, I want to buy it.
So let me kind of make this a little bit more relatable to the average viewer. If you've ever, when you met your spouse or maybe a girlfriend or boyfriend, and you met them, and let's just say it's in a bar, right? Or networking meeting, whatever. But you find yourself like totally enthralled in them telling you about themselves, their lives, their dreams, their passions. Now, before, I know when I met my wife, before the evening ever ended, what was I already convinced of in my head? I was convinced this is the girl
I'm going to marry this woman. Yeah.
This is the girl. Well, I didn't think that. I thought she's way out of my league, and but this is the kind of girl I would want to marry. Like but I didn't come to that conclusion intellectually. I came to that conclusion by listening. Listening to her story and connecting with her passion and what her dreams were. I'm like, wow, that's what I want for my life. That's the direction I want to go. You're telling me like you're sharing with me your dream, but it's exactly what I want as my dream. So a sales presentation should be the same emotional experience.
100%.
Where you forget, you're not even thinking that this is a sales presentation because it's telling a story. But by the time you get to the actual CTA or offer, call to action or offer, if the viewer's already made up their mind because of the story, you know you got it right.
And there's tactics and techniques that you put in there along the way.
Easter eggs.
The little micro commitments, all the things, but that's the whole idea, is to get them bought in even before you present the offer.
So
and it comes down to effective storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you want to brainstorm about this,
isn't that why, like you said, in certain workshops, they hire a comedian and a comedian writes the script and you're like, wow, this guy is so good. Whatever it is he's selling, I want it.
Yeah, absolutely. And either a comedian or a professional speaker, because every great speaker, just go to TED Talks and do the talent of speech writing, right?
Yeah.
Every single time they never introduce themselves. They don't give their credentials.
They just jump right into it.
They start with a story.
Yeah.
I mean, some stories don't even have words to it. We showed it.
And then 5 minutes in, they'll go, by the way, if you're wondering who I am, and then they do it,
So so like one guy got up, he was talking about some sort of health issues or natural supplements, but he comes out and he attempts to light a cigarette on stage. Now everybody's shocked and he's struggling. The whole first 30 seconds is him struggling to light a cigarette. But what do you think the audience, everybody's like, what? You're not supposed to smoke in here. What is he doing? And so it created that hook and curiosity. He's going to explain this. I want to know why now. Why? I want to know why is he doing this? And that's a great way at engaging into someone's story. But all that being said, this question has been hanging out there and I've been wanting to address this question, Brian. And it's once you've created that compelling, great documentary, how can you
create really good B-roll?
Oh, well, that's B-roll. There was another question in here.
That's actually a great question.
And from the same person, I'm going to throw up the other question, which was actually earlier.
Well, for this one is script writing, and once you have the full story with all of your information, it's really easy just to prompt AI, say, I need a 1-minute version of this, and then and go through the same process, because I did that just yesterday, and it created something decent. But I said, I don't think the hook is good. I'd rather it say this, and then it rewrote it. And then I go, okay, well, now I want the call to action. I want it to be click below for the button. So you have to guide it. But you need all the parts and pieces there. You need the story. You need the origin.
Well, I think the question is, once you do have the documentary, how can you create multiple pieces? And just for So it's just not Brian and I telling you. I'm actually, Marie, if you can turn your microphone on or put yourself on screen just so I can ask you a quick question so you can hear it from our actual director of our documentary. And how many recreated pieces of social media have we been able to create in the last 60 days based off of the original content of the documentary?
More than 20, Rob.
More than 20.
So,
That's only in the first
yeah,
60 days. So
yes.
I just want to encourage everybody. That part's easy.
Yeah.
Getting the story right and the sales presentation is the hard part. Then creating just limitless video clips.
Unlimited versions.
Correct.
Once you have all of the parts and pieces. And the B-roll section that's actually really easy too. There's a lot of tools that you can, Google Flow is good, which they use the VO3 video model. I use Higgsfield, I use OpenArt, and all of them are just different versions of video generating models. And you prompt it just like you would in Claude. In fact, you could go to Claude and you could say, hey, Claude, I need a video prompt where a man walks into an office and it's a conference room full of people and everyone looks angry and frustrated, or whatever you want the prompt to be. And Claude will write the prompt for you, and you copy and paste it and you put it in the video generator, you hit go, and it'll create an 8-second clip of exactly what you just told it to create.
Yep.
Or you could say, I want it to look like the 1980s video footage because I want it to look really old.
My apologies. My partner's geeking out here on AI, but I'll rein him back in. And because the reality is, yes, we want to give you all the information you need to do it yourself. And you can join the sandbox at wealthvids.com/sandbox.
We have a lot of tools and trainings in there.
And prompts and everything you need. If you feel like the nuance overwhelms you or confuses you, I'd encourage you to hire somebody to help you with, once the story's created, to help you bring it to life, because it does make a difference using someone who has experience in doing this, and you can vet previous pieces of content. But if you aren't sure where to start, you can always go to schedule15minutes.com. That's 15minutes.com. I'd give you 15 minutes to point you in the right direction, whether you do it yourself, done with you, done for you. We have all of those services. And the do it yourself is absolutely free. We give all our resources away. So we're not telling you need to,
where you can ask questions and
get advice,
engagement.
And you can even directly hire one of our VAs for you inside the sandbox if you want them to work on an individual project. Maybe you just want them to create one video. That's available in the sandbox as well. So if you need to decide done for you, do it yourself, done with you, you can do schedule15minutes.com, and I'll help you, point you in the right direction. I think that's pretty much a wrap up for today, and story needs to be number one, and bringing it to life depends on how well you uncover the story.
And I think the biggest takeaway is, once you have that story, then you've just created for yourself that blue ocean where you just completely control that corner of the market, and you're speaking directly to your absolute ideal audience.
And the one way to make sure that you're never overtaken by AI, because AI does not have sentience, and AI does not have your lifetime of unique experiences.
It doesn't have your personality. Yeah.
Well, it has almost all personalities, because it's merging all experiences and opinions together into one common thought pattern, or most common thought pattern. But what is going to keep you individually valuable or invaluable is for you to tell your own unique story, because nobody on earth can share your unique story. And as you implement that into your business and your why story, it keeps you relevant for life.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. And until next week, Thursdays, 9 a.m. Pacific time. In the meantime, we'll see you in the digital world.